to the People's Mirror, and if you're joining our channel for the first time, please hit the subscribe button so that we keep updating you on what happens in the Kenyan political scene as it unfolds, and also that you help us grow our small channel, which is an affiliate channel of the Civic Lens KE. Now let us start from these two top stories that we want to put before the mirror before we take a look at the third one. And the first one is the brothers in duel. Now, people don't know much that Tim Wanyonyi, the member of parliament for Westlands, Nairobi, is serving under the ODM party ticket currently, is a brother to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Wetangula, who is the long-living serving member and party leader of the Ford Kenya party. Now, these two brothers seem not to see eye to eye politically, and we will put much of this story later on before the mirror as we reflect on Tim Wanyonyi's bid in Bungoma that is now putting Masika Wetangula at a very hard position alongside his relationship with the Didmas Barasa and of course his brotherhood with Tim Wanyonyi. But that aside, we'll also take a look at Didmas Barasa's response to the ground now that Ford Kenya lost in Kabuchai, which is part of Bungoma County, and this loss of the Ford Kenya party has been interpreted with certain members of the Bungoma County themselves as a reflection of Didmas Barasa's loss in those major polls in 2027 and what now he is saying. Other than that, we'll also take a look at briefly at the statements that were now made by leaders of the Rift Valley area, who are now calling upon Kalonzo to actually record a statement providing more details with the DCI, providing more details on his allegations that Honorable Francis Ogola, the general of the army, was actually taken out. Now, let us start from our main story, which is in this brotherly duel. Tim has been serving in Westlands for now his third term under the ODM party as the member of parliament of Westlands constituency. He is a loved, celebrated politician within the city. Sometimes back in 2022, he wanted to vie for the position of the gubernatorial seat of Nairobi, but the ODM party went ahead to pick Honorable Igathe over himself, and he went back to Westland and still secured in a landslide that particular member of parliament constituency against individuals like Nelson Harvey, who are hopefuls in that particular area. Now, he also had intentions to come back to Nairobi in 2027, but he has since changed his mind and is now seeking this particular same position that he wanted in Nairobi back at home in Bungoma. What most people don't know, that irrespective of the influence that Honorable Wetangula has in the Bungoma area, one thing remains very steady, that his influence in the Bungoma area now is going to face a brotherly challenge from the ODM influence that his blood brother will be introducing in that particular race. Mr. Wetangula is the leader of the Ford Kenya party and is currently the Speaker of the National Assembly. But Mr. Tim Wanyonyi has never contested for any seat using his Ford Kenya party ticket, something that people have said translates to a political rivalry that exists between these two blood brothers. Now let's take a look at what Tim has said concerning the recent results that are coming from Kabuchai and what he has said moving into the Peja polls in 2027, and where his statements and his political bids put his brother's interest and political bid. Now, he said that while referring to his elder brother, he said that an attempt made in Kabuchai failed drastically, where politicians who thought that they could impose their will on the people failed. Of course, you remember what happened in Kabuchai, and later on we will detail it here because Tim details it further in detail, that Eric Wekesa, who became the current MCA in Kabuchai ward, was actually first an individual that went and approached the Ford Kenya leadership alongside other community leaders, and they told Honorable Wetangula that with Mr. Wekesa it would have been a landslide for the party without much struggle coming from the party to actually campaign But because Mr. Wetangula felt that Eric Wekesa was being sponsored by other individuals who are not primarily individuals associated with the Ford Kenya party, now Tim Wanyonyi tells us that he discredited Eric Wekesa. And just like the biblical story of the stone that was being rejected becoming the cornerstone, Mr. Wekesa turned out to be the MCA of Kabuchai. And so now Mr. Tim, the current Honorable Member of Parliament for Westlands, interprets this particular transition of power and politics as a voice of the people, and assure that politicians who have been previously known for imposing their wills upon the people now need to relook at the people ahead of 2027, using the fail in Kabuchai against his brother as one of the examples to show that where politicians impose their will upon the people can respond negatively. Now you see, this is very, very important political statement for Mr. Wetangula, because Bungoma County is the backyard of his political success. Ford Kenya, that does not have more than 5 members of parliament in the National Assembly, is in this particular power negotiation because of the ground influence and support that Wetangula pulls not only in Bungoma County but in the western area in the previous elections. Now, with the Trans Nzoia aspect of it going under the influence of Natembeya very heavily towards the united opposition, and with Kakamega going with Honorable Bully Khalwale and Cleophas Malala very heavily towards the united opposition, Bungoma is a test ground of whether or not Wetangula will still hold on his support base or he will lose it in 2027. And likelihood of him losing it ahead of 2027 are now very evident, considering the fact that in a ward competition where an independent candidate was going against his own Ford Kenya candidate, he lost. His long-term friend in that particular area of Kabuchai constituency, being Mr. Majimbo Kalasinga, is now against him in the Ford Kenya party. And now his own blood brother is going to contest against his interest, even if his party will not be fronting a gubernatorial seat. Of course, the UDA party will be fronting Didmas Barasa in that very backyard to confirm whether or not Wetangula is still strong in his own backyard. So this is a family and homely test that is coming to the doorsteps of Mr. Wetangula. Further into the statements of Mr. Tim Wanyonyi, he maintains that in this era, nobody can force a voter to do that which the voter does not want to do. And so he says that when you see a voter behaving a particular way, then it is that voter that wants to behave that way. Because with the awakening of Kenyan democracy, Mr. Tim believes that our timeline provides a situation where no voter can vote in a manner that they do not want to vote. So he says, as I said, that the candidate that was rejected by Ford Kenya ended up being the MCA of Kabuchai ward, and that is just a clear reflection that we're living in an era where the voters are independent in their own mind and in their own voting. So Mr. Tim Wanyonyi is currently serving under the ODM party, and that is the party that is going to use to penetrate Bungoma, that is predominantly a Ford Kenya party area. And in this Bungoma dominated area, it's important to say that even right now as we speak, the current governor of Bungoma, Ken Lusaka, who was also previously a speaker, is currently under that particular party, of course, Ford Kenya. Mr. Washikoli, who is replacing Mr. Boni Khalwale in the position of the majority whip of the Senate, and who is the senator of Bungoma, is also currently under the Ford Kenya party. And so this particular influence of a brotherhood coupled by ODM going against Ford Kenya is going to be a new novelty in that particular area. It's creating a political rather tension in that area, because the influence of the ODM party in Luhyaland has been there, except for Bungoma. Even when Raila was alive, Bungoma came into the table as a result of Wetangula's votes coming into the table, not as a result as ODM penetrating, into that area. Now, there are certain older leaders of the western part, including Atuli, who have felt like the death of the ODM party now introduces Luhya unity. Even the members like Honorable Dr. Boni Khalwale and Cleophas Malala have hinted, saying statements that the Luhya man should no longer be in the ODM party and should strengthen their own party. Natembeya also is in the united opposition and has been quoted making those statements. Now, UDA and ODM are in broad-based arrangement. and in 2027 they are likely to still hold together unless the ODM party pulls themselves out of that arrangement. Now in Bungoma, the broad-based parties will be fronting two governors to contest, where one will be from the UDA party being Didmas Barasa, and one will be from the ODM party being Team Wanyonyi. Now Wetangula will be in a very hard fix. Will he campaign for the UDA party candidate, or will he campaign for his brother and neglect his own party? And all these tests of the success of the Bungoma gubernatorial seat narrows down to the position that Wetangula will take with Didmas Barasa and Team Wanyonyi's bid in that particular part of the country. So as we put a stop to that particular interest of Team in the area, let's take a look at what Didmas himself has said. So Didmas sometimes back was seen driving into Chwele Kabuchai in top of a caravan of course a convoy rather of vehicles and a caravan of humans, and he was walking into this particular space of Chwele Kabuchai, as he now details in a later interview, to see whether or not it was possible to tilt the votes from the person that was leading the polls, being Mr. Wekesa, to their candidate. Now he says that their candidate was doing so poorly in Chwele Kabuchai, their candidate being the candidate of course Ford Kenya Party, even if he says that is going to vie under the UDA Party, and Ford Kenya Party and UDA Party of course are part of the Kenya Kwanza arrangement. So he says his arrival there was as a result of the agreement that they now have in Kenya Kwanza. And so he says by the time he was getting there, the Ford Kenya Party was doing so badly that the opinion polls was showing that he was not even likely to hit 1,000 votes in the major polls. And so he says that maybe his presence tilted those votes that the Ford Kenya Party had to turn that way. Now Didmas intends to vie for the position of the gubernatorial seat of Bungoma that we have just talked about, and is the major competitor that Team Wanyonyi is facing in that area. He intends to do this through the UDA ticket. Now he says that alongside Wetangula, of course, they might have lost in Chwele Kabuchai, but is trying to ask people to shy away from interpreting that as his direct loss in 2027 major polls, saying that number one, he was not part and parcel of the campaign that was going on in for Ford Kenya candidate in Chwele Kabuchai. He only showed up to make a little bit of support for that particular area, and he does not want to focus on anyone's business. He wants to focus primarily on his business between now and 2027 to ensure that he delivers that win of course the governor of Bungoma to the UDA camp and to himself. So he thoroughly downplays that these particular results of the ward were in any way a reflection of his 2027 bid, and of course he acknowledges that there are opponents that will beat him in certain parts of Bungoma. He says that he knows that not the entire Bungoma will vote him holistically, and there are spaces where opponents will beat him, but he's still hopeful that in the overall run he will win the Bungoma gubernatorial seat. Mr. Didmas Barasa also says that now the voters have become a bit intelligent. So there he says that he's in that race, but he's not in that race to manipulate the voter, because he acknowledges that we are living in a time and a democracy where the voter has become a little bit more intelligent. As we wind up on this episode, let's just touch a bit on the move by certain leaders from Rift Valley, including Johanna Ngeno, the MP of Emurwai, and of course the current senator and former governor of Uasin Gishu, Honorable Mandago, who now want Honorable Kalonzo to record statements with the DCI concerning what he said at Kanguka Jaramogi that General Ogola was taken out. Mr. Mandago, who has now called Kenyans not to trust statements of Kalonzo, saying that Kalonzo is not an honest man, that if Kalonzo was ever an honest man, then he would have not accepted to be, of course, sworn in at night in 2007 after allegedly stealing Raila Odinga's votes, from the statements of Mr. Mandago, who believes that the 2007 government did not win the election. Mr. Johanna Ngeno now wants Kalonzo to clarify on the information that he has on who took out General Francis Ogola, and to supply that particular information with the DCI. So Mr. Ruku and Mr. Murko Murkomen, Mr. Wandai also used that particular platform to tell the united opposition that the ground is still with the UDA and certain statements like that of division should be justified. Of course, this is not the first time that we are seeing calls from that camp to the united opposition to verify statements with the DCI. Sometimes back when Rigathi Gachagua was abroad, the government also called upon him to arrive and make record statements with the DCI concerning his knowledge of the involvement of the state with RSF. Now, Kalonzo publicly made these claims again that the country is involved in gold from Darfur coming for processing here and export to Dubai, was making these statements when the Rift Valley leaders are still on his neck for the statement of General Ogola. We hope to see how that unfolds and hear the people's mirror. We will keep you updated on whether or not Kalonzo will record those statements with the DCI. Yet another very unrelated part of the story is Babu Owino's story. Babu Owino recently attended the burial, of course, that was going on in Kangoka Jaramogi as a result of the invite of Winnie Odinga and also the fact that he's closer to the Odinga family. And after introductions and all those celebrations and whatever went on, what was clear is that, of course, the people still feel that Babu's presence is worth rallying behind. But in the conversations that was being had in Kangoka Jaramogi, including statements that were made by, of course, the Senator of Homa Bay County, Moses Kajwang, that what is the need of chasing for Kingpin when the Ogingas are still alive? That talk and other talks that were trying to demean the position of Babu were countenanced by Orengo when Orengo said that Babu is being attacked, yet he portrays the leadership of tomorrow. Now, Babu held a small rally that was actually very, very successful. A lot of people showed up in this rally and he made statements yesterday that we want to put, of course, before the mirror as part of the episode that we are doing right now on the rivalry of these two siblings, of course, flaring to the county level. So Babu, while speaking to the people, said that first, there is no running away from what lies behind. Of course, talks have been made that with the introduction of now new figures like Alado and Moses Kuria in the Nairobi seat, Babu might be facing a very harder ground now compared to how this race looked like around a year ago, when the major competitor for Babu that lay ahead was, of course, just Johnson Sakaja. But Babu has now promised that there is no running away from what lies ahead and he intends to actually fight it to the end. He has said that those people who will come with violence will be met with violence and they will be chased all the way to beneath their beds. And so now he intends to face all the people, including the voices within the ODM party that have since been, saying that he is young. He has countenanced those voices, saying that when it is arresting Babu, then Babu is old enough. When it is Mandamano and Babu is being tear gassed, then Babu is old enough. When it is Babu making changes through going through the court systems to remove people who are facing this rogue regime, then Babu is old enough. But when it comes to the table of politics, when it comes to discussing the future of the ODM party, or when it comes to the broad-based arrangement nominations of ministers, for example, or when it comes to the conversation of the kingship of the party, then Babu is a small boy. And so he says that this particular statement of him being young is being choreographed by politicians to actually seclude him from key top positions. So he's very vibrant, and his new plan is this. He says that Aluman has sat in all these seats, including MCA seat, the member of parliament seat, the women rep seat, the senate seat, a governor's seat, a minister's seat, a prime minister seat where Raila sat, and a vice president position where Jaramogi Oginga Odinga sat. And Babu says that the only position that the community has since not attained is the positions of the presidency, and that is where he has his eyes fixed. This has been interpreted by his loyalists as a move that Babu could be holding within his closet right now and might be revealing just a few days ahead of 2027, where now talks are that as Babu steadily gears towards the gubernatorial seat of Nairobi, his other alternative move is to present himself for presidency in 2027. And so this Babu's alternative move has people focusing their eyes a lot on him. He attacks ministers serving under this current regime, asking Luos again that who has benefited directly or their lives changed just because Wandai and Mbadi are currently CSs. And as the people reply none, he says that the ministers have taken these particular positions to enrich themselves, buy themselves new clothes, new cars, and take trips abroad without actually giving deep concern of the community. And so he says that such ministers are unfit to give the direction for the people moving forward. Of course, this is coming shortly after attacks of Wandai aimed at Orengo, saying that these particular statements that he makes from a position of a leader of the community. And this particular power struggle between Orengo and Wandai is the basis of our previous episode here at the People's Mirror. So Orengo was defending Babu directly while Babu was sitting at Kango Kajaramogi. Is now also coming under Babu's defense, saying that the ministers lack the moral capability of leading the community going forward. He says that the narrative of him being young, as I said, it's part of the Maandamano dream, and he says that since 1992 to now, Raila's Moi conversation, Raila's Kibaki support, Raila's Uhuru Kenyatta handshake, and Raila Ruto handshake are all as a result of Maandamano. Maandamano has brought the new constitution. Maandamano has brought the repeal of Section 2A. Maandamano has done away with finance bill, and he has said that this will still remain his identity moving into even a county and national politics. So Babu Owino's take on that one is bordering this particular episode's end, where the rivalries of other siblings are also mounting to the county level. We are also seeing that rivalries within the party of the ODM can itself torpedo a very young man to the position of a presidential candidate in less than 2 years if these particular rifts keep going on. Until our next episode.